everybody. Welcome back to our final episode this week with Adam Levy, and I'm joined here with Joe Gore.
Hi, it's psyched to be here again. We've been having a blast with Adam.
Yeah, Adam, it's so fun to talk to him and just kind of sit under the learning tree as it was. And so today's episode, I kind of set this up with a bit of a loaded title. Now it's kind of the myth of 12 keys. And, as me who went to jazz school and graduate school, it was really kind of pounded in about learning things in a lot, if not all, the keys. But we had quite an interesting discussion, Joe, about where's the line? Like, is it stylistically or is it idiomatically? Like, where's the line? Do you have to learn to be a well-rounded guitar player? Is all 12 keys a necessity?
Yeah, it's a good question. But as you see when Adam talks, it goes a little bit beyond that. Adam's a heavyweight teacher as well as a heavyweight player and former chair of the guitar department at Los Angeles College of Music. And this is a guy who knows teaching. And some of his perspectives on teaching are a little surprising and unusual. And he's certainly not one to suggest anything other than working hard. But he also keeps it very, very, humanistic and musical and real. And I think he's really hit upon something about, keeping eternal learning fresh and exciting and fun, and not a miserable slog.
Yeah. And probably my favorite part is that I finally get to bust my teenage guitar teacher on the real answer that is he tuned down a half step when he plays that famous solo on Tracy Chapman's Gimme One Reason.
I could have told you that.
I know, but I wanted to hear it right from the guy who
yes,
played
it is. It is in the key of F sharp with 5 frickin' sharps.
So I'm.
I mean, so 6. I'm going to be in trouble with all my teachers. Key of F sharp is 6 sharps, not 5. B major is 5 sharps. Oops.
Yeah. So this is a super fun one. We get really nerdy in this. So I hope you check it out, and I hope you check out all of Adam's music and everything he has going on. He has a Patreon going as well. And so let's jump right into it. And here we go with our final episode with Adam Levy. All right, Adam, thank you so much for joining us again. And I have been looking forward to this topic because it kind of drove me a little batty in grad school. And that is the myth of 12 keys. Do we need to learn everything in 12 keys?
Oh, wow. Okay. So
you said the myth of 12 keys, so you're asking a very loaded question, Jason.
I am, yes, on purpose.
Right. I'll just say I'll say one caveat up front, which is that I'm not, I don't like to put a lot of shoulds in the practice room, because I think that people run down a lot of dead ends that way of all the things you should practice. Just before we went on, you mentioned that you had to study medieval notation in school. And, I know when I was, coming up, there was this idea in music school and even before that, like, well, if you want to be a studio player, you got to be able to sight read, and you got to be able to play country and rock, and you got to, be able to do this and that and that. And so if you carry all of that stuff with you every time you sit down to practice, I feel like more than likely you're just going to not get anything done, like literally just get nothing done. So when we talk about like the myth of 12 keys, I know for some people this lives in that same zone as all this like stuff that you should do. And for me, it's not that way at all. So it might just be the way I'm wired, or maybe I've talked myself into it being a cool thing and not a terrible thing. But like, okay, first of all, I studied with Ted Green, which I think we might have mentioned earlier this week. And if you look at any of his handouts, like if you go to tedgreen.com, there's all these old lessons of his, and most of them will tell you there'll be a little handwritten note at the bottom, practice this as written, and then practice it and he'll mention, 5 or 6 other specific keys, which is kind of a shorthanded way to say do this in all 12 keys. But he might have an intention that oh, if you wind up doing this in these other specific keys, you're going to have to figure stuff out because you're going to run out of the fretboard either on the low end or the high end, and maybe have to do some string transference or just rethink what you're doing. He might be specifically trying to run you into an obstacle that you're going to have to figure out. But I love that about it. It's like this page of music isn't just a page of music. It could be a week's worth of practice or months worth of practice if you really take it through the keys and don't just go, okay, what's the next page to work on? So that's one reason that I love. I mean, I guess that's one thing that is maybe curious about all 12 keys. Another thing is playing with singers. I've been lucky in my life as a guitar player to work with a lot of singers, well-known singers like Nora Jones and Tracy Chapman, but lesser known singers too. It's always been part of what I've done as a player, playing my own music and then playing with other people. And you just never know what key somebody's going to want to do something in. And if you're just stuck with the way it is on a record or the way it is in a songbook or whatever, then you don't really know the song. Muscle memory isn't the song. If you if you think that just like putting your hands in the shapes that you learned them in is equals whatever the song is, then that's you're missing the song. So I find that for me, if I can play a song, and this is true even not even just of a song, but a lick, a little melodic idea in all the 12 keys, then I really know it because it's not just about finding it in the place that you expect to find it, but finding it on a different part of the guitar or a different register, or just you get to know the thing, whether it's a lick or a song, a lot better, and you get to know the guitar a lot
Mhm.
better, and that's important.
So to me, when I was, and again, I came like through a jazz school, you could say, and
Yeah.
it seemed to me like it was more important to be able to take something through the 12 keys than it was to know it in 12 keys. And I think that's a big difference. Like,
Okay, what's the
so
difference?
the difference to me is like, let's say you're working on drop two chord shapes, whatever, just for vocabulary reasons.
Huh?
Now, learning those inversions across the string sets and up the neck, extremely important to blend that in,
Mm.
because your brain is kind of understanding, okay, where's the root? What's the intervallic makeup of this chord, and how do those move around as I slide to the next inversion? Like that skill to
Yeah.
me is more important than taking a song that could use the same exact chords through all 12 keys, because you might, like you said, it's more important to have the tools sharp than to know this vast amount of repertoire, to me anyways, to be able to, at the drop of a hat, play it in any key. Is that?
Well, gosh, that's a tricky one because I think both of those things are important, and I'm not sure that I'd want to eliminate one or the other. I'm picturing like an old slapstick routine where two people are trying to get through the doorway at the same time. And yeah, it's true. If you're working on your drop two voicings, it's funny. I'm now having a flashback to a conversation that Joe and I had at the NAMM show a couple of years ago about learning all these drop two voicings that you would learn that if you were at jazz school, and talking about, is that important? Is that not important? If you're at jazz school, it's really freaking
Yep.
important. I would use a stronger word than that, but I'll leave it at that. If that's what you're doing, it's of paramount importance that you can do it in all keys on any string set at any time, so that you don't have to like think about it. It's just there.
Yes.
But at the same time, music is songs. It's not a jury at music school. It's songs. So all of that stuff, if you can't apply it to songs, is, to me, of limited value. So if I was working on my drop two voicings, say like you said, I might first just take it through all the keys. Like this is A minor 7, first inversion drop two, and I might just take it around the circle. That's D minor 7, and so on, and just do that same form on the same string set around the circle of fourths until I could do it without thinking about it. But then I would also try to take a jazz standard that featured minor 7 chords and play it in some different keys. And if I couldn't do that, then to me that material wouldn't be as available as I might convince myself that it was. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's also two ways of approaching that too, because there's the ability to play in any key because you've systematically played and studied songs in all 12 keys, or there's the ability to play in any key because you've just studied a lot of music, period.
Right.
That telling a student practice this in all 12 keys, I'm not so sure, but using more naturalistic and somewhat random techniques like you do. Like in an earlier installment this week, we had a fascinating conversation about how Adam uses dice to define his practicing session each day. There's the brain killing practice of saying I will learn this in 12 keys and sit down and I can do it. But then there's if you each day sit down to practice and you have some new key challenge, you eventually cultivate the ability to do that. I mean, I can generally play stuff in any key, and I never sat down and learned how to play it 12 times. It's just, you just know how to work in keys.
Yeah.
Right. With regard to the jazz school angle, I would say one thing that students sometimes miss is that the key in the real book is not law. And that I mentioned earlier that working with singers, you never know what they're going to want to do. So if you're trying to learn a jazz standard, say like I Concentrate on You, the Cole Porter song that I love, it would behoove you to know it in a few different keys, if not in all 12, in a few keys. But then there's also other considerations like guitar keys, like we're guitar players. So if you want to take a Thelonious Monk song that's in D flat and put it in D because it speaks on the guitar, I don't see any problem with that. But you need to be able to do the transposition in order to make that work. And at the end of the day, we're guitar players. I don't think the guitar is a piano. I like to play pianistic things on it, but I love open strings. And so I might when I talk about playing in all 12 keys, the first thing that I'll have my students do if they're working on, say, a jazz standard is play it in the 5 open keys, the 5 guitar-friendly keys. If we're in major, that would be C major, A major, G major, E major, and D major. So thinking like caged. So if we're going to do body and soul, I'm just going to go through the chords. Like I have to know that it starts on 2. So that's comping through body and soul in C. I won't do it in all 5 because of time, but here it is in A. It starts on the 2, so and of course, not all of those chords use open strings, but you get this beautiful chord here that's the 5 of the 6 when we're trying to get to the F sharp minor, instead of just playing a closed down chord like this where everything is fretted and there's nothing open. You could find these kind of tangy sounds with open strings. I guess you'd want to do something like that. So I find that going through the open keys is a great place to start, because it just reminds us that we're guitar players. And if you can do that and you own a capo, well, you're, that's a really good start.
Capos aren't cheating.
No,
No.
heck no.
Yes.
That's
No
I
way.
mean, we'll talk about the myth of 12 keys. The myth that capo is cheating. Just in the last 2 or 3 years, I've seen concerts where John Scofield used a capo. It was when he was playing Country for Old Men. He used a capo. I saw Jimmy Vaughn play in Austin in February.
That's his whole deal, is that Gulf Coast capoed up sound.
Totally.
Yeah.
Johnny Marr plays with capos. So, if you if you think you're better than Jimmy Vaughn and Johnny Marr and John Scofield, then don't buy a capo. Otherwise, buy a capo and learn to use it. And then, the other thing about playing in 12 keys, again, I was just talking about how the chords speak on the guitar. But if you're trying to play a song that has a melody, find a place on the guitar where the melody really speaks, a register, depending on what the tune is, where it could speak. If you have a 3-piece band or a 4-piece band, find a place on the guitar where you can play the melody and it would sing over the top of whatever else is going on, and then build everything else around that. And so that might be in a funny key like D flat or B, but it not necessarily so. But part of playing in 12 keys isn't so much just this notion that your professors would tell you in jazz school that you must. I think about it just more as, well, we're just trying to play music. And so sometimes playing music puts us in a key that's different than what the recorded version is, the famous record by whomever you're into, or different from what the real book says. Joe Pass recorded Round Midnight in D minor instead of in E flat minor, because he's a guitar player. Does Joe Pass know how to play in E flat minor? I'm pretty sure he did, but it opened up the guitar. So to me, that's not cheating any more than using a capo.
Yeah, but then my first thought is, but if you're playing it in E flat minor and you are going to use a not literally pianistic sound and exploit the open strings, then it's like E flat minor. Yeah, you've got to open flat 2, you got to open flat 6.
Yeah.
You've got an open sharp 4.
Yeah.
It's like the open strings are bitching in quote non-guitar keys.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yeah.
So I've been waiting 20 years probably, Adam, to ask you this question, and it totally ties into our topic. Give me one reason.
Yeah.
Were you tuned down a half step or not?
That's really funny. No, I was not, and Tracy Chapman was not. The rhythm guitar on that is her. She was playing this old ES 125. I couldn't tell you the year. Joe might know the answer. But she was playing it with this thumb pick, that rhythm part that everybody knows. That's all like thumb pick, downstroke, and then kind of using the rest of her fingers, upstrokes and downstrokes to get that thing. That was in standard tuning, in F sharp. And you can tell by the open string thing, that's kind of the tell when I listen to stuff. And then I was playing my 1979 ES335 TD in standard tuning. I mean, there's a perfectly good case, like in my whole life, how often had I played blues in F sharp?
Exactly. Knowing the blues scale all over the neck, vitally important, just in case you get called to play an iconic solo like that on record.
Yeah. And had I not been able to go like, okay, cool, yeah, F sharp, great, I'm into it. If you look down at the guitar, all of the things that you're used to seeing don't make any sense, But
the dots are in the wrong place.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, the dots, like it'd be great to like have movable dots. I know over the years
transposable dots.
Yeah, over the years people have done some interesting things with like movable pickups. Where like you have a pickup that's on a little track that you can move. Or I remember. Who was the company that made different fretboards that you could slide in and out?
Oh,
I don't remember
that.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
But and there's also been a million learned guitar schemes that have illuminated frets or brightly colored dots on the neck.
Right.
And my thing with those is like, okay, best case scenario is you really learn your notes or whatever, right? So it kind of trains you to make those products obsolete in a way.
Right. If you learn all the stuff that they're supposed to teach you, then you shouldn't need it anymore. I mean, really, the other thing about playing in all 12 keys, I think what you really need to be able to do on the guitar is have a feel for intervals. If you I'm going to put my middle finger down on A. This is 4th string, 7th fret. Okay. If in my mind, I want to go up a minor third, I need to be familiar enough with how the guitar works to go like, well, I can just stay on the same string and it's 3 frets up, or it's 1 string over 2 frets back. Like from this note, this A, there's 2 minor thirds I can get to without moving my hand. There's other ones that are inconvenient, but might be cool for effect. I just got that up at the 15th fret on the 5th string, or 1st fret at the 2nd string, or 2nd string, 1st fret. But within any particular place, you want to, if you have a melody idea in your head, you want to be able to play it. So even more than like the idea of playing in all 12 keys, what I think is important as you practice is to think about a melody that you want to play, put a finger down somewhere and play that melody from where you are, which has to do with, I guess, learning the caged system is a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
But however you think of scales, melodies are just intervals, one after another, and whether it's diatonic or chromatic, you want to be able to work that way.
Well, I'm so glad after all these years of listening to that solo, my guitar teacher at the time swore to me that you were tuned down a half step.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, my guitar. And I'm like, there's no, because I heard that open E, I was like, it seems weird that one guitar would be tuned down a half step and one wouldn't be. I don't know. I mean, and so I'm so glad that I'm going to call him up later and be like, you were wrong.
You still know him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say definitively that the rhythm guitar part is in standard tuning and my solo is in standard tuning.
Excellent. All right. What a way to 14-year-old Jason is so excited right now. So, well, thank you so much, Adam, for hanging with us this week and getting super nerdy.
Yeah, Adam, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Joe. Such a treat to talk with you.